37 bracelets, 3 men, 0 solvers. Right now, somewhere in the world, a poker player is running a solver. They are feeding in ranges, adjusting frequencies, optimizing every decision to within a fraction of a percent of theoretical perfection. They believe that if they can just get close enough to the mathematically correct answer, the money will follow. And in certain controlled environments, they are partially right. But here is what the solver cannot tell you. It cannot tell you what it feels like to play poker in an underground game in Texas in 1962, where the men carrying the money are also carrying guns. It cannot tell you how to read the involuntary micro-contraction of a man's jaw when he is representing a hand he does not have. It cannot tell you how to use an orange as a psychological weapon at a final table. And it cannot tell you how a 24-year-old kid from Wisconsin walked into Binion's Horseshoe in 1989, left a message on his own answering machine saying, "You are talking to the 1989 world champion of poker," and then went and made it true by defeating the greatest player in the world at that moment. Heads up, in front of everyone. GTO is a tool. What Hellmuth, Brunson, and Chan built is something different. Something older. Something that operates in the space between the math and the human being sitting across from you, making decisions based on fear and ego and identity and exhaustion that no frequency chart will ever fully capture. These 3 men won a combined 37 WSOP bracelets. Not with solvers, not with HUDs, with something that lives in the mind and cannot be downloaded. And while we are talking about bracelets, consider what the bracelet actually costs. Stu Ungar won 3 of them. 3 main event titles. The most naturally gifted card player, by most accounts, who ever lived. He died in a Las Vegas motel room in 1998 with no money, no friends present, and a body that had been destroyed by the same compulsive intensity that made him brilliant at the table. 3 bracelets. Broke, alone, dead at 45. The bracelet does not protect you from yourself, only the right mental architecture does. And that is exactly what Brunson, Chan, and Hellmuth built that Ungar never did. In the next few minutes, you are going to understand the specific psychological weapons each of them used. You are going to learn the secret behind the hand that won 2 consecutive world championships with the worst starting cards on the table. You are going to learn how Chan built a trap so perfect in 1988 that a future Hollywood film used it as its climax almost word for word. And you are going to understand exactly why Hellmuth's famous white magic destroys the most technically sophisticated opponents he faces. Stay with me. Because what comes next is going to change how you see this game permanently. Before Doyle Brunson was the godfather of poker, before the cowboy hat and the 10 bracelets and the name that became synonymous with the game itself, he was a road gambler. And road gambling in Texas in the early 1960s was not a recreational activity. It was survival, carried out in back rooms and private clubs where the players were armed and the games were frequently rigged and where a young man from Longworth, Texas could walk in with a bankroll and walk out with nothing, or not walk out at all. Brunson and his partners, Amarillo Slim and Sailor Roberts, spent years driving through Texas, Oklahoma, and Louisiana, playing illegal games, winning, losing, being robbed at gunpoint, starting over. He was beaten and robbed on multiple occasions. He watched the world of underground gambling from the inside. And what he learned there, not from books, not from theory, not from software, shaped a poker philosophy that no algorithm has ever fully replicated. Poker is a game of people played with cards, not a game of cards played by people. This single sentence, Brunson's most famous observation, contains more exploitable strategic information than most players extract from 100 hours of training content. Read it again. The subject is people, not cards, not equity, not expected value. People. What Brunson understood before most players understood anything is that the cards are simply the currency through which human psychology expresses itself. The money does not move because of the math. The money moves because of fear, because of ego, because of the desperate human need to be seen as competent, to avoid the social humiliation of being bluffed, to protect an identity that has been constructed around being a winning player. The road gambling years taught Brunson something that no simulation can teach, that the most dangerous thing at a poker table is a man who is not afraid of losing his money. Because a man who is not afraid of losing can make any decision the situation demands. can bet when betting is wrong by all conventional metrics, can fold hands that look strong because something in the room does not feel right. Picture the clock on the wall reading 3:17 in the morning. The room smells like cigarettes and cheap coffee. 4 players left. 3 of them have been awake for 19 hours. 2 are playing scared money. 1 is replaying the hand he lost 2 hours ago in the back of his mind while pretending to focus. And then there is Brunson, sitting completely still, chip shuffling with one hand in a rhythm so consistent it sounds like a metronome, watching all 3 of them with the same eyes he developed in the illegal games of Longworth, Texas, where losing your money was the least bad thing that could happen to you. That is not a poker player. That is a predator in a room full of prey who do not know they are prey yet. Fear management, not range construction, was the foundation of Brunson's game, and it built 10 bracelets across 4 decades. But here is where it gets technical, because Brunson did not just philosophize about poker psychology, he demonstrated it twice in consecutive years in the final hand of the most important tournament in the world, with the same 2 cards that no serious player would have voluntarily put money in with. What those hands reveal about aggressive poker strategy is something we have never fully decoded on this channel, until now. May 1976, Binion's Horseshoe, Las Vegas. The World Series of Poker main event is down to 2 players, Doyle Brunson, the chip leader, and Jesse Alto, a card dealer who had made the main event final table 7 times in 12 years. A skilled, dangerous player. Alto holds ace-jack. Brunson looks down at 10-2 offsuit. Most players fold without a second thought. Brunson calls. The flop comes ace-jack 10. Alto has flopped 2 pair, aces and jacks. Brunson has a single pair of 10s. Alto bets pot. Brunson, the chip leader, moves all in. Now stop there. Because what just happened in that moment is the entire Brunson philosophy compressed into a single decision. He is behind. He knows he is behind. The pot-sized bet from Alto communicates enormous strength. And Brunson moves all in not because the math supports it, but because he has read something in the human being across from him that the math does not see. He has identified a player who slow-played a strong hand and then bet pot, a pattern that in a heads-up situation against an aggressive chip leader communicates more about psychological state than card strength. Brunson read the fear underneath the aggression. The all-in was not a gamble. It was a surgical read executed with maximum pressure. The turn brought a 2, giving Brunson 2 pair but still trailing. Alto moved all in. Brunson called. And then the river brought a 10, giving Brunson a full house in the championship. The dealer pushes the pot. Chips cascade across the felt. Alto sits back and stares at the board for a long second. The way a man looks at something he cannot quite believe he is seeing. The bracelet goes to the man who held the worst hand for most of the hand, because the bracelet was never about the cards. 1 year later, 1977, different opponent, same hole cards, 10-2. The flop came 10-8-5. Brunson had top pair. His opponent Bones Berland had flopped 2 pair with 8s and 5s. The turn brought a 2, giving Brunson 2 pair but still behind. Berland went all in. Brunson called. The river brought a 10, giving Brunson a full house and his 2nd consecutive world championship. 2 years, 2 championships. 2 times the worst hand on the table won the biggest tournament in the world. The lesson here is not about 10-2. The lesson is about what Brunson called selective aggression under maximum fold equity. In both hands. He recognized a specific pattern. An opponent who had made a strong hand on the flop and then overcommitted to it, unable to release it under pressure because the identity of being the player with the best hand was more powerful than the rational analysis of the situation. Brunson exploited the psychology, not the equity. He applied maximum pressure at the exact moment his opponent was most cognitively committed to a losing course of action. This is how you apply it today. When a player on a wet board bets large on the flop, calls a raise and then checks the turn, they are often not checking for pot control. They are checking because they are afraid, because the board changed, and they do not know what to do with a hand that felt strong 1 street ago. That check is an invitation. Brunson would have recognized it in 1976. He would recognize it at your table tonight. The question is whether you do. Johnny Chan arrived in America from China at the age of 11. He grew up in Houston, Texas, worked in his family's restaurant, and found poker at a time when the game in Las Vegas was dominated by a handful of Texas road gamblers who had been playing professionally since before Chan was born. He was an outsider in every sense, and he turned that outsider status into one of the most dominant runs in tournament poker history. Barry Greenstein, one of the most respected players of multiple generations, has said it simply: Chan was the best player of the 80s. Not one of the best. And the weapon that separated him from everyone else was not aggression, not math, but something that sounds almost too simple to be a professional strategy until you understand the mechanism behind it. He kept an orange on the table. The official story is that the orange was there to combat cigarette smoke, to give Chan something to smell that was not the stale air of a casino that ran 24 hours a day. And that is partially true. But the real function of the orange was psychological, both for Chan and for his opponents. For Chan, it was a sensory anchor, a physical object connected to a specific mental state, a state of calm, of focus, of identity. Neuroscience now has language for this, a conditioned stimulus that reliably activates a target neurological state. Every time Chan reached for the orange, he was triggering the same focused internal environment he had trained in. He was resetting to his A game through a physical ritual that cost nothing and communicated everything. Picture Chan at the table. The room is loud. Players around him are shifting in their seats, checking their chip stacks for the 4th time in 10 minutes, adjusting their sunglasses, doing everything nervous humans do when money is on the line. And Chan picks up the orange, smells it once, sets it back down. His breathing does not change. His posture does not change. His eyes do not change. And every player who watches him do that registers, somewhere below conscious awareness, that this man is operating on a different frequency than the rest of the room. For his opponents, the orange communicated something that no poker face can fully communicate: that the man across from them was not anxious, was not affected by the environment, was not running the same cortisol spike they were running under pressure. And that communication, that display of physiological calm, was itself a strategic weapon. Because a player who believes their opponent is unreadable and unaffected plays differently than a player who believes they have an edge. Chan was managing his opponent's mental states before a single card was dealt. If you cannot spot the sucker at the table in the first 30 minutes, you are the sucker. Most players know this quote. Almost nobody applies it correctly. Because Chan was not talking about identifying the worst player at the table. He was describing a systematic psychological profiling operation that he ran in the first 3 orbits of every session. He was building what we would now call a human HUD, profiling each player not by their stats but by their behavioral responses to specific stimuli. Who tightens their posture when they look at their hole cards? Who exhales when they hit a set? Who checks quickly when they want a check raise? Who takes longer to call when they are weak than when they are strong? Chan was running this scan before the first significant pot was ever played. And by the time the money went in, he already knew more about his opponent's decision-making patterns than they knew about themselves. But nothing in Chan's career demonstrates this psychological mastery more clearly than one specific hand in 1988 that became so iconic, so perfectly constructed, that a Hollywood director used it as the climactic moment of the greatest poker film ever made. And when you understand exactly what Chan did in that hand, you will never look at a checked turn the same way again. 1988 WSOP main event. Johnny Chan, already the reigning world champion, faces a young, relatively unknown player named Eric Seidel heads up. On the final hand, Chan is dealt Jack-9 of clubs. Seidel holds Queen 7. The flop comes Queen 10-8. Chan has flopped a straight. The nuts. The absolute best possible hand on this board. Seidel has flopped top pair with his queen. Now watch what Chan does. Because this is where psychology separates from poker. Chan bets $40,000. Seidel raises $50,000. Chan calls. The turn comes a 2. And Chan, holding the nuts, the best possible hand, checks. He checks the nuts on the turn. To a player who does not understand psychological poker, this is a mistake. You have the best hand. Why would you give a free card? Why would you allow your opponent to improve? But Chan understood something that the math does not capture. Seidel believed he was ahead. He had flopped top pair. He had raised Chan on the flop and Chan had called. In Seidel's mind, he was the aggressor and he was winning. The turn check from Chan did not communicate weakness. It communicated uncertainty. It invited Seidel to write the story he wanted to believe, the story where he was winning and Chan was confused. Now picture Seidel in that moment. 20-something years old, first major tournament, heads up for the world championship against the player everyone in the room calls the master. He has raised the flop. Chan called. The turn comes and Chan checks. And something in Seidel's chest loosens slightly. He thinks. He is slowing down. I have him. The payout screen is visible at the edge of his peripheral vision, the number next to first place. He tries not to look at it. He cannot stop looking at it. On the river, believing he was ahead, Seidel moved all in. Chan called instantly. The commentator, watching the hole cards revealed, said what everyone was thinking. Eric Seidel cannot win this hand, and yet he doesn't know it. Chan checked the turn and laid the perfect trap. This is the mechanism of psychological slow play at its most pure. You do not slow play to get more money into the pot. You slow play to manipulate the narrative your opponent is constructing about the hand. You give them the authorship of the story. You let them write themselves into the hero role. And then, on the river, when they have fully committed to their version of reality, you reveal that it was never their story at all. Here is how to apply this at your table. When you have a strong made hand against a player who has shown aggression earlier in the hand, consider what story they need to believe to put maximum money in on the river. Give them the card that confirms that story. Check the street that invites them to bet. Then let them tell you how much they want to lose. May 1989. The poker world is watching to see if Johnny Chan will do what no player in modern history has done. Win 3 consecutive main events. He has already dispatched the field. He is heads up with a 24-year-old from Madison, Wisconsin, who most of the room has barely heard of. Before the heads-up match, Chan had said of Hellmuth in an Esquire interview earlier that year, "That kid, when he learns to rein it in, he is going to win the main event." It was 1989. Chan had not expected to be proved right quite so immediately. Before the tournament, Hellmuth had left a message on his own answering machine saying, "You are talking to the 1989 world champion of poker." He had taken even money bets that he would win. He was telling anyone who would listen. Most players would call this arrogance. Hellmuth called it preparation. Here is the psychological mechanism. By publicly and repeatedly committing to winning, Hellmuth was doing something that performance psychologists now call identity pre-commitment. He was installing the outcome into his self-concept before the event began, so that playing at the level required to win felt not like an aspiration but like an obligation. He was not trying to win. He was trying not to contradict himself. That is a fundamentally different neurological state, and it produces fundamentally different decisions under pressure. At 24, Hellmuth became the youngest WSOP main event champion in history, defeating Johnny Chan, the 2-time defending champion. Heads up, his record as youngest champion stood for nearly 20 years. And Chan, watching the chips move across the felt to the kid from Wisconsin, said later that he knew going into that match that Hellmuth was going to be a problem for the rest of his career. He was right. 17 bracelets later, Hellmuth is the most decorated player in WSOP history. But here is what most people miss about Hellmuth's victory. It was not won by aggression. It was not won by the emotional outbursts that would later define his public persona. The 1989 Hellmuth applied what he called white magic to overcome the incredibly tough playing field. White magic is Hellmuth's term for pure exploitative reading, the ability to identify what a specific opponent will do in a specific situation with enough precision to make decisions that appear irrational by GTO standards, but are correct, given the specific human being across the table. And here is the piece that connects everything we have built in this video. Because Hellmuth's tilt, his outbursts, his famous poker brat persona, they are not a weakness he overcomes through talent. They are a deliberate psychological instrument. And in the next section, we are going to show you the exact mathematics of how Hellmuth uses emotion as a strategic weapon, and how you can build a version of the same system at your level. Here is what most people fundamentally misunderstand about Phil Hellmuth's emotional displays at the poker table. When Hellmuth erupts after a bad beat, when he stands up and lectures the player who just got lucky against him, When he says things like, "If there was no luck, I would win every hand," the room laughs. The internet clips it, the commentary mocks it. And while all of that is happening, Hellmuth is reading every single response in the room with surgical precision. Who looked uncomfortable? Who looked amused? Who tensed? Who laughed too quickly? Who avoided his eyes? The outburst is the diagnostic tool. Here is the strategic mechanism. After a significant emotional display, every player at the table has been forced to reveal something about their relationship to conflict, to social pressure, to the discomfort of watching an authority figure lose control. The players who are most uncomfortable with the outburst are typically the players most sensitive to social pressure in general, which means they are the players most likely to make suboptimal calls to avoid conflict, most likely to fold under aggression because aggression makes them physically uncomfortable, most likely to give action to a bet that carries emotional weight because refusing feels confrontational. Hellmuth files this information. He uses it. He adjusts his aggression frequency against the uncomfortable players. He checks back against the players who were amused and therefore unaffected. The mathematics of this are real. If a player's calling frequency against aggression drops from 40% to 30% because they are conflict-averse, and you can identify that player and increase your bluff frequency against them by 20%. The EV impact over a session is significant. Hellmuth has been running this calculation intuitively for 4 decades. Now here is the tell reading system that you can apply regardless of your emotional style. Watch for 3 physical signals in the first 3 orbits: posture change when hole cards are viewed, breathing pattern during all-in decisions, and eye movement immediately after a raise is faced. Posture contraction when viewing hole cards indicates discomfort with the holding, even if they play it. Changed breathing during all-in decisions indicates that the autonomic nervous system has taken over from the prefrontal cortex, meaning the decision is emotional, not strategic. Eye movement toward chips after a raise indicates a player who is calculating a call, which means the raise is working and more pressure may complete the fold. These 3 signals gave Hellmuth information that no solver has ever been asked to process. Because solvers play against ranges, Hellmuth plays against people. Here is a specific hand example so you can see exactly how this works in real time. You are in a live cash game. Early in the session, Hellmuth erupts after losing a pot. The player in seat 3 laughs loudly and looks around the table for validation. The player in seat 7 goes very still, looks down, and says nothing. 2 orbits later, you are in a 3-way pot. Seat 3 calls a flop bet without hesitation, comfortable with conflict, unaffected. Seat 7 faces the same bet and takes 8 seconds before calling. The hesitation of someone whose autonomic nervous system is running a threat response to the aggression, not a strategic calculation. On the turn, you bet again into seat 7. Their breathing changes. Shallow, faster. They fold. Seat 3 calls and shows you they had the best hand. In one session, without a single HUD stat, you have identified which player will give you their stack when you apply sustained pressure, and which player will call you down regardless of what you represent. This is the human HUD that Chan built with his psychological profiling in the first 3 orbits, and that Hellmuth builds with his emotional display in the first significant pot. It is not dramatics. It is data collection. And it is executable at any table you ever sit down at starting tonight. Let me tell you why you are losing money right now, despite the fact that you have never had more access to poker education in the history of the game. There are more training sites, more YouTube channels, more solver subscriptions, more coaching programs available today than at any point in poker history. The average serious player in 2026 has consumed hundreds of hours of video content. And yet the studies consistently show that the vast majority of players who consume this content do not measurably improve their win rates over time. The reason is neurological, not motivational. When you watch a training video, your brain enters a passive processing state. The information arrives in a format that requires minimal cognitive effort. Someone tells you what to think, shows you what to do, walks you through the logic. Your prefrontal cortex receives the information but does not construct it. And information that is received rather than constructed is stored in short-term semantic memory, available for recall in low-pressure environments but functionally inaccessible in the high-stakes, high-speed, emotionally loaded environment of an actual poker hand. Think about what that means in practice. You watch a video on 3-bet defense from out of position. You nod along. You understand the concept completely. 3 days later, you are in a live game. You have been awake for 6 hours. There is a player 2 seats to your left who has been 3-betting you every orbit. Your cortisol is elevated, and you face that exact spot. The video is gone. Not because you forgot it, because it was never installed. It was received, and filed information does not fire under pressure. Constructed information does. Brunson did not have training videos. Chan did not have training videos. Hellmuth did not have training videos. They had books. And they read those books the way serious students read, actively, with a pen, with notes, with forced reconstruction of the concepts in their own language. When you read, your brain simulates. It builds internal representations of ranges, of bet sizing, of decision trees. It calculates equity, not by watching someone else calculate it, but by running the calculation itself. Every time your brain runs that calculation actively, the neural pathway strengthens. The pattern becomes accessible not just in quiet study but under the specific neurological conditions of a live game under pressure. Brunson wrote Super System in 1979. It was not a product. It was a knowledge transfer from one of the greatest minds in poker history directly into the reader's neural architecture. Chan's approach to poker was built through reading, observation, and active reconstruction of what he saw at the table. Hellmuth's white magic was not learned from a video. It was built through thousands of hours of active analysis, written notes, and the kind of deep pattern recognition that only develops when the brain is forced to construct meaning rather than simply receive it. The players who study with books do not just know more. They know differently. They know in a way that is available when it matters. Here is what 37 bracelets, 3 generations of dominance, and everything we have covered in this video points toward. Hellmuth built his game through active study, through reading, through notes, through the kind of analytical work that produced a mind capable of reading, tells that no frequency chart captures. Brunson wrote the book that defined modern poker strategy, and spent decades refining a philosophy of human exploitation that goes deeper than any solver has ever gone. Chan constructed a psychological system from observation and study that made him the best player of an entire decade. None of them ran a simulation. All of them read. Most players who watch this video will feel something shift in the next few minutes. They will close the tab, go back to their regular study routine, and play exactly the same emotionally reactive poker tomorrow that they played yesterday, not because they do not care, because inspiration without installation is just a feeling that fades. The players who actually become dangerous are not the ones who feel motivated after a video. They are the ones who build systems, who install frameworks, who do the slow, unglamorous work that happens in the hours nobody sees. Brunson was on those Texas roads in the middle of the night while other players slept. Chan was studying every behavioral pattern at every table before the money got serious. Hellmuth was leaving messages on his own answering machine and taking bets on himself when nobody believed him yet. The bracelet was already decided. The table was just where they collected it. And right now, for a very limited time, we have something available on this channel that I have never offered before. When you purchase Collection 2 at the link in the pinned comment, $29.89, you receive the complete Collection 2, 10 ebooks plus 5 premium bonus ebooks covering advanced exploitative strategy, tournament psychology, emotional control frameworks, ICM pressure management, the mental game systems that elite players actually use. Every concept in this video, the Brunson aggression framework, the Chan psychological slow play system, the Hellmuth tell reading matrix, lives inside that collection as an executable written system that your brain can install through active reading, not passive watching. But here is what makes this offer different from anything we have done before. If you have not yet purchased Collection 1, we are including it completely free. Right after you confirm your purchase, you receive instant access to both collections in your email. Everything together. 25 ebooks total. The most complete poker library this channel has ever assembled. Not videos, not courses, books. The format that built Hellmuth, that built Chan, that built Brunson, delivered to your inbox immediately for $29.89. This offer exists for a few days only. No countdown timer, No retargeting campaign coming after it. When the players who move on this today are the ones who walk into their next session with a different architecture. The ones who wait are the ones who will watch this video again 6 months from now and still be playing the same game. Doyle Brunson once said, "The key to no limit is to put a man to a decision for all his chips." He was not talking about bet sizing. He was talking about life. Every hand you play, every session you sit down for, every tournament you enter, is a decision for all your chips. Not just the stack in front of you, the time you invested, the money you spent, the version of yourself you are trying to become. The players who read, the players who study with intention, the players who install systems rather than collect content. Those are the players who put their opponents to decisions. Click the link in the pinned comment right now. Secure your 25 ebooks and start building the mind that Hellmuth, Brunson, and Chan spent lifetimes constructing. The bracelets were never won at the table. They were won in the hours nobody saw.
You will never again be the fish at the table when you master these 10 practical guides that teach you to think like WSOP players. Poker is a war of intelligence, and study is your ammunition to win that war. But the first battle to be won is generating a consistent income at the lowest stakes. It's this victory that gives you confidence and motivation for the tougher battles that lie ahead. And to win this first battle, you don't need all the ammunition that exists. You only need a few specific weapons. That's what we deliver to you in Mind of a Grinder. The right mental structures and frameworks for you to win this first battle faster. And with minimal damage, you will study and practice what's necessary to start achieving consistent results and evolve your game intelligently. Then your time will be better used, the path will be much safer, and you will be able to generate consistency in your game. And only after that will you start adding more tools to your arsenal to face bigger games. Click the Learn More button on this video and access right now the complete collection with more than 10 practical guides for you to consistently profit from poker. You will understand how the system works that is helping players think and play like professionals.